Hi everyone, welcome to a gameplay video of the Brew series. In this video we are going to be testing the current decklist of Boros Taxes against Jeskai Tempo, one of the strongest decks I would say in the current meta. So if you don't know the current decklist of Boros Taxes, just have a look at the previous video and also to the introduction where I present the reason behind creating such a deck archetype. So here I'm playing against my friend Elena, and this game is going to be amazing. The reason why there is no audio beforehand is because it's the first time we are trying this camera and I couldn't get the sound set up correctly, so we were able to record the video but not the audio, so just bear with me. Anyway, I just wanted to share this gameplay with you because I believe it was an amazing game, and yeah, I'm recording this afterwards. So let me just give you a quick heads up of what happened. Elena started with a really quick Black Lotus turn 1 followed by Serendipity Fruit and Mistress Factory. And in the second turn, she just played a Tundra, and this is the current status of the battlefield. Then on my first turn, I had one of the King Suleimans, and in my last turn, I actually drew the second one, which was devastating. I was very happy when I could draw this. So my first turn was Plains into Sol Ring into Chaos Orb, and my second turn was drawing the second King Suleiman and playing both at the same time. So now Elena is facing a big trouble because I'm not sure if she can deal with one of the King Suleimans, but they have Summoning Sickness right now. So what she's going to do is to try to push as much damage as possible, push it through. So this is 6 damage coming towards me, and I cannot block it. I mean, I could, but I decided to keep my King Suleimans alive. In this case, this is the end for the Serendipity Fruit, and the deck list of Boros Taxes is already showing how strong it is to have King Suleimans in the main deck. It has 4, so basically any Serendipity Fruit should have troubles. As you can see, I also have an Exorcist, but it's not going to really have too much impact in this game since Jeskai Tempo doesn't play black. The current list of Jeskai Tempo is not playing Splash Black. We were playing for a while this variety with one Demonic Tutor and Mind Twist, and we thought it was strong at the beginning, but it happened so often that it just didn't find the black mana, while, I don't know, one Demonic Tutor was sitting there together with other cards not being able to play it, or the same goes for the Mind Twist. Also the frustration that Jeskai Tempo is not a deck particularly well known for having too many lands or too much mana in general, so the Mind Twists were never as optimal as being able to discard 5, 6, even 7 cards. Therefore, we decided to remove it. So the deck list that you're going to see right now for Jeskai Tempo only has 3 colors, and it has a suite of removals with 4 Disenchants, 4 Swords to Plowshares, 4 Lightning Bolt, and 4 Psionic Blast. Why 4 Psionic Blast? Because they are awesome, and if you want to see which is the performance of every, let's say, killer or the top removals, you can also have a look at the link above. So what's going on right now? What's going on is that Elena is trying to attack again. Of course, King Suleiman is going to take care of the Serendipity Fruit. This is bad news for her, but also seems to be bad news for me because I'm getting really close to dying. Like, basically, she's already done 11 points of damage to me, and the 2 damage that she took were basically from the Serendipity Fruit. Okay, I didn't get so much damage because obviously I destroyed the Mistress Factory before it did damage, which was a terrible turn for Elena because her Soul Commitment was full attacking, and basically she even pumped up the Mistress Factory, and after my Disenchant there was no actual development or tempo development in her turn. This is good for me because Boros Taxes focuses on stalling the game and not really doing anything useful in matters of, I don't know, explosive game. But now that the King Suleimans have controlled the battlefield, have taken control of the battlefield, and the Exorcist is just there, just supporting them, my objective would be just to push 3 damage per turn, and that should be it. Let's see if Jeskai Tempo can defend itself. So right now the current status is 15 life points for Elena, 12 for me. I still have my Chaos Orb that I could use at any time. And that Sylvan Library, this Library of Alexandria. This Library of Alexandria, I'm not destroying it on the spot because Elena has 3 cards in her hand. So far, it looks like Wheel of Fortune, Psionic Blast, and something else. It would be amazing for her to cast the Wheel of Fortune, I'm pretty sure of it, but apparently she has colored mana problems. She hasn't found red source yet. She also has a Time Walk. The only issue is that she cannot really push too much damage. If she would cast Time Walk right now, she would only push 2 extra damage. That doesn't seem to be very, let's say, impactful right now. The game has fallen down to a very good situation for me because, once again, Boros Taxes is a control or prison deck as far as I'm experiencing it right now, and it likes to stall the game. In this case, Jeskai Tempo is losing its tempo, and it's giving me the chance to top deck cards that could be devastating. Hopefully, I will draw something more useful than just lands in the next turns. But so far, it looks good for me, because at any time, I could try to trigger my Chaos Orb and destroy her Mizra's Factory. I'm not doing this right now because I think the mathematic calculations of how this would go benefits me in a sense that if I attack for 3 damage per turn and she does it for 2, I will end up winning. So she's tired of not being able to find red source. She casts Time Walk to see if there is better luck here. But yes, apparently she found a volcanic island. Let's see if she will be able to play this Wheel of Fortune. Obviously, casting Wheel of Fortune would have full priority here because this would give her immediately 7 cards and it will enable the Library of Alexandria. That would be a very powerful game. She's putting it on the right, placing it on the right side, meaning that maybe she wants to reserve it to use it for drawing afterwards. And there we go. We have the Wheel of Fortune being cast. There's nothing I can do to react. Boros Taxes doesn't have any counter spells, any way to, also doesn't have lightning bolts or any kind of things like this. It focuses on permanent. Elena is deciding to keep her Tundra open instead of Mizra's Factory. She's wondering if she could attack after the Wheel of Fortune, but those 2 damage maybe could be beneficial or not. We are here discussing whether she should keep the Tundra on top or the Mizra's Factory. Let's see which decision she makes. Until then, we know that the Library of Alexandria will be activated. So she sacrificed a Psionic Blast that she decided not to cast in order to trade it for 7 new cards. Let's see what we draw. For now, it looks not so good for her. Since I have the 2 King Suleimans and 3 damage per turn clock, I drew land tax and a lot of lands. So this is not a really good hand. The only new thing that I could actually do could be Winter Orb, which could basically disable the Library of Alexandria and the Mizra's Factory. Okay, let's say that Winter Orb it's strong. If I catch her completely tapped. And now she's attacking. She decided to keep the Mizra's Factory open to push through 2 additional damages. She understands that in tempo, we really have to push as much damage as possible. My creatures were tapped, so it was the right time to push for it. So I draw a Swords to Plowshares. Obviously, this is going to be very useful against any Serra Angel that would be cast afterwards. I will try to deal with the Mizra's Factories in a different way. So for now, I cast my land tax, and it's going to be completely devastating in this case because she has 4 lands in play. I have 3. This immediately gives me the possibility to activate it in next turn. Why is it so important to activate land tax in this deck? Because we are definitely in mid-game right now. And eventually, what I want to do is to trade all of those lands that I'm not playing for, I don't know, a new shuffle and a refreshing new hand with a Winds of Change. So the situation is this. This Winter Orb has totally devastated the mana-producing abilities of Elena, and she's considering what to do. We can see a City of Brass in her hand, For the next videos, we will try to get the cards of her hand a little bit closer to the camera so that we know what's going on. But the most important thing is to know that she decided to untap the Library of Alexandria, which gives her even more chances to draw a disenchant in case that she didn't found it yet. So let's see what she's going to do. From my side, I still believe I feel myself in a comfortable situation. I have 3 creatures. 2 of them are completely blocking any, any showing up of Serendip Ifrits. I feel very safe with the 2 King Suleimans in battlefield. I would love to try to play against Mono Black to see how the Exorcists also perform, how well they perform. Because, oh my god, this is so great that I'm using permanent to actually use them as a permanent form of removal. And this is a concept that I never explored in old school before. I've been playing the deck for a long time, and of course you have to cast spells to deal with stuff. You want to destroy a creature, so you cast the Swords to Plowshares. You want to destroy an artifact, maybe disenchant, and so on and so on. And yes, you have permanent forms of card advantage, like the Abyss, for example, that deals with many different creatures, 1 each turn. But it is the first time I'm exploring to have these King Suleimans and the Exorcists. So she makes a land drop. Tundra is going to be her weapon of choice, and let's see if with these 3 mana she's going to do something. Apparently not. She's saving those 3 mana. I believe she has 7 cards in hand, so she can still activate the Library of Alexandria. Yes, can you see? She has 1 counterspell. I believe what it is a Serendip Ifrit, but she couldn't cast it because of my King Suleimans. This is awesome. She also has a mana drain. White card seems to be Swords to Plowshares, so she has a lot of stuff in her hand. I don't believe she's going to have any bad time soon. Probably I will be the one having the worst time because I have 4 lands in my hand. Obviously I'm going to activate land tax. This is one of the strongest strategies that Boros Taxes can do in the long run, because the intention, as you can see, the first card in my library, or the last card, was Winds of Change. The intention is to be gathering as many of these lands as possible to keep my hand full at all times, and eventually I will be able to replace them with Winds of Change. To the question of why is this useful and how many turns do I have to stay with lands. Okay, she's showing her hand. So she has actually 2 Serendip Ifrits that can do nothing sitting in her hand. That's amazing. The King Suleimans are proving their worth. So anyway, my intention is to have as many lands as possible in my hand because eventually I will draw Winds of Change. The worst thing that can happen is to draw a land after picking 4 with Boros Taxes. I mean with the land tax. But anyway, so I play a mountain because I can see that she has 5 lands. And this gives me the possibility to play an extra land. I chose Mountain because I'm planning already in my head to be able to cast Blood Moon and something like Winds of Change in the same turn. And I believe this should be the last land drop I ever do unless she starts overcommitting again with a lot of lands in the table. She drew a card, an extra card with the Library of Alexandria at the end of the turn. She wasted 3 of her mana. There was not too much she could do. Mostly everything was reactive with counterspells and so on. So what she decided is not to untap the Library of Alexandria this turn in exchange for untapping a volcanic island. So now she has access to the 3 colors that she could have. Let's see which kind of land drop she's going to play. And I believe up to this point, as long as anyone is playing against a land tax that is already activated, you could assume that I'm going to be not playing any more lands. So I believe that Elena should be able to play lands every turn. Okay, here we are realigning the camera because we have accidentally kicked it. But anyway, in the meanwhile, we can see that she has cast a lightning bolt on me. I have 5 lives left. This is terrible because this is one of the points that I wanted to bring up in the next video for the next draft, where I recognized after these games, it's very difficult for Boros Taxes to deliver a quick win because my creatures are very weak, so to say, in general. They are awesome when it comes to crowd control, but they hit for just 1 damage most of the time. And I've been pushing damage through. She has only 9 lives left. And right now, let's see what is going to happen in the end. There is a time twister in her hand, but I believe the best thing we could do, or she could do for now, is to try to use her cards before drawing another extra 7. Yeah, Serendipity Ifrits don't do much. She has a Swords to Plowshares. Unfortunately, I have 2 King Suleiman. If she was able to deal with both King Suleiman, then she would be able to start casting the Serendipity Ifrit. And she would very, very quickly win the game because I believe I only have 1 Swords to Plowshares in my hand. I could only be able to deal with 1. Now I'm considering whether to activate or not again. Counting the number of cards in my hand, I can see that I have 7, but one of them is already a Winds of Change, which means if I cast it, I will have 6. The card that I will draw in this turn will mean 7. And the -1 from the Winds of Change being cast will mean 6 again. So I'm just trying to find extra lands with the hopes that I will find a really good card to cast in this turn and still keep 7 cards while resolving the Winds of Change. Unfortunately, I also can see that Elena has 3 blue mana open, and of course I'm aware that anything that I do could be counterspelled. So I'm pretty sure that unless I find some kind of bait, I won't be casting Winds of Change this turn. Let's see what I draw. And that's a Swords to Plowshares. That's not going to make it in order to put additional pressure on her. But I feel comfortable because her Mizra's Factories are tapped. Winter Orb is actually showing her that winter is coming, and it's difficult for her to cast as many spells as she wanted. And 3 damage per turn from my side is working. She's now at 6 lives. I just need 2 additional turns to do this. So I decide to go to discard, and I'm telling her that, of course, the moment that I discard, it's the end of the turn, so she has to tap her Library of Alexandria before. She draws a Serra Angel. That would be a really strong play. I discard the planes that I don't need. That was a, let's say, risky move. Risky. I mean, I just placed 1 extra land with land tax in my hand in hopes that I would draw a Blood Moon, and then I would definitely cast Blood Moon and in sequence a Winds of Change. I didn't find anything proactive, but rather something reactive like a Swords to Plowshares, so I had to just pass the turn. But that's okay because Boros Taxes, it's a slow deck, and it seems to just need 2 additional turns to close the game. What will Elena do in her turn? First, she needs to untap 1 land. Let's see which one she decides to untap. And I believe she's considering casting these Swords to Plowshares. This Serra Angel. The problem is that I'm holding Swords to Plowshares. Maybe she knows it, maybe she doesn't. But what is for sure, if she taps out completely, Serra Angel will defend her. But my Swords to Plowshares could really take care of her. Of the angel, of course. That's also not good for me because giving her 4 extra life will give her extra turns. But my 3 damages per turn clock seem to be okay for now. Let's see what she decides to do. Okay, she's counting the mana. I'm pretty sure she's going to cast the Serra Angel. This is the place where we, for example, deviate. She plays very well Magic, and it's very, I find myself cornered many times, and I lose very thrilling games against her because she really catches me off guard. But in this case, we have two different, let's say, main strategies. I play in a very, very defensive way most of the time, the safest option that I can always ever have. I don't really like taking risks. In this case, I believe she's considering taking the risk of tapping out and casting Serra Angel. I'm guessing that what's going on through her mind is, I'm at 5 lives and I'm pretty sure that she can find burn spells very quickly. This means probably if she can push through those 4 damages from Serra Angel, she knows the end of the game is there. She can take the win for herself, but she will be tapped out. She won't be able to cast her counterspell, so it's a risky business. However we see it, risky business. So she plays a land. This makes up 6. Of course, the best play in the world would be Serendipity Ifrit with counterspell backup and go, but my King Suleimans are holding the battlefield against any Ifrits. Difficult decision. I really think she's going to go for the Serra Angel. Otherwise, she would have said go already. But I believe she's very, very much realizing something has to change. If nothing changes, I'm going to win in 2 turns. My 3 creatures are going to close the game very, very, very easily without any effort because they just have to attack. And playing 2 Serendipity Ifrit, for example, could be one line of play because this would completely disable my my King Suleimans in the next turn. Obviously, I mean disable, because I wouldn't be able to attack with them. I would use them to destroy the Serendipity Ifrits. And then I would only be able to push 1 damage. This could be a possible strategy since it gives her the chance to see what's on the top of her deck and then cast Time Twister afterwards. But we see that the choice that she makes is to cast Serra Angel, keeping 1 City of Brass active. So in this case, she says go, and I say, you know what, I will tap just 1 plains, and I'm going to trade 1 mana versus your 5 mana that you committed in order to cast the Serra Angel. And the Swords to Plowshares is probably going to take care of the Serra Angel. Unfortunately for her, she didn't wait 1 turn. If she had waited 1 additional turn, she would have been able to untap an extra land. She would have been able to play another land, and this would have meant that she could cast Serra Angel and still keep 3 mana open. That would have been devastating for me because I would have only 1 Swords to Plowshares. I would cast it, she would counterspell it. That's game. That's the end of the game. This strategy is actually a really good one, playing the Serra Angel, but I would have waited 1 more turn because this would have guaranteed that she could have counterspell backup. Then my chances would be very, very narrow to actually be able to deal with the Serra Angel that would block any of my creatures and still be able to attack me. However, in this unfortunate situation, she couldn't be able to protect her Serra Angel, so at least she goes up to 10 lives. And now it's my turn. Let's see what I draw. I'm counting now again to be able to activate land tax or not, depending on the calculations. And I decide not to do it. And I find Relic Barrier, which is not so bad because if you know, in Desperate mode, I believe that Elena could decide to untap the Mistress Factory just to be able to block any of my creatures. Again, that would be devastating for me because my creatures would just die. And the Relic Barrier can very, very easily take care of the Mistress Factory since it would tap it immediately right before it can block, right after the activation. That was explicitly chosen to have Relic Barriers in this Boros Taxes deck, not only because it deals with the early Mistress Factories and it furthers even more the mana mana denial strategy of Boros Taxes by tapping Moxes and Sol Rings of the opponents, but it can also combo with the Winter Orb. I could at any time tap out entirely, and at the end of my opponent's turn, I could tap the Winter Orb, which would allow me to untap all lands, but my opponent is only allowed to untap 1 land per turn, which makes this very unfair in terms of symmetry. Anyway, I'm casting Winds of Change now. I see my opportunity. I see that she doesn't have 2 mana open in order to cast the counterspell. So now she's deciding whether to Swords to Plowshares a King Suleiman or not. But we are having a discussion now because she's thinking what could be her best viable way to close the game, because her entire hand is reactive. There's nothing too much that she can do to kill me, but she knows she has 4 Lightning Bolt in the deck, she has 4 Psionic Blast in the deck, I have only 5 lives left. So I'm pretty sure she decides to let this go, to not cast the Swords to Plowshares right now against the King Suleiman, because this doesn't deal with the big problem entirely, because there's a second one. And she's considering to keep the City of Brass untapped in case she finds Lightning Bolt. Okay, in this case, some revision is necessary because she dropped the cards in the graveyard. She needs to put them back into the library. But yes, we are discussing about this now. So she will be able to draw 6 cards out of my Winds of Change, and I will be able to draw 5. That's unfortunate because I would have wanted to draw more cards out of my Winds of Change, but there are no more basic lands in the library, so I couldn't activate land tax. Now those basic lands are back in the library, so in the next turn I will be able to activate it and keep this engine going. So basically what's happening right now is that I had a hand full of nothing with 5 lands and 1 single copy of Winds of Change. And with just 1 red mana, I was able to, let's say, cast a massive Brainstorm, if you know Brainstorm from other formats, so that I can replace these basic lands with any better cards. And as you can see, yes, it's finally good. I found a Disenchant, which is good. I also found a Blood Moon. I just found business, which is good, because basic lands do nothing good sitting on my hand. And now I'm going to start committing to this strategy. I cast Blood Moon, I entirely disable Library of Alexandria, I entirely disable the Mishra's Factory. This is not by chance, this is by deck design. And we can see that in terms of permanence, Boros Taxes is really dealing with everything that's going on with the Jeskai Tempo matchup. The only issue that we see here is that unfortunately, I haven't been able to set up my control in time enough. And even though I started the game with 2 King Suleiman, direct damage has put me into this very close situation where I am now up to 6 lives. But again, this means nothing because 2 Lightning Bolts can get me out of the game very quickly. So she takes 1 damage. And her intention is to Swords to Plowshares 1 of my King Suleimans. Now it looks like this is going to go in the direction of being able to cast Serendipity Fritz, but let's see if this is what will happen. Now I'm considering using my Chaos Orb to destroy the white mana source because it is tapped. But if I were to do that, if I were to activate for 1 mana the Chaos Orb, I could still have chances to miss if I flip it wrong. So instead of that, I decide to tap out completely, and instead of paying 1 mana for the Chaos Orb activation, I pay 2 mana for a Disenchant. This gives me 100% chances to destroy the white source. What I'm obviously trying to accomplish here is to prevent her from ever disenchanting the Blood Moon. And yeah, it looks like she's already in the lock. The only possible cards she can cast right now is things that are red, perhaps Ancestral Recall. That blue Mox, as much as you can see it there, so innocent, apparently doing nothing, is going to determine the difference between life or death for me. And this is perhaps something that I didn't realize in time enough. Next turn, I should definitely use my Chaos Orb to destroy the blue source of mana, because this would prevent her from ever casting Psionic Blasts on me. but I believe I didn't recognize this in time enough. So she plays a mountain, and let's see what she decides to do. Okay, we can see she has what it resembles a recall in her hand. She also seems to have a counterspell, and she's looking at her graveyard. So I believe she's planning on using recall, but let's see what she decides to do. So far, once again, this doesn't necessarily look so bad for me. I have 2 creatures. This means 4 turn clock. And 4 turns, will it be enough for me to close the game? If Elena finds lightning bolts or psionic blasts, I'm down 4. So maybe one of the considerations that I wanted to have is the divine offerings that I have in the Boros Taxes list. We have 2 of them, 2 divine offerings. And they give us the possibility, the chance to destroy opposing artifacts and also to have some life gain in return. And that's awesome, that's really cool. But oftentimes I find myself casting divine offering for the actual purpose that I wanted to have them, to destroy, in order to destroy Mizra's factories most of the time. Or maybe cancelling effects of Chaos Orbs as a response of the activation. And this is great, but this is not really giving us the lives that this deck needs, because it's a little bit too slow. And any deck with burn is going to suffer. I remember that one of you guys, thank you very much for your comments, after watching the deck list of the Boros Taxes, he recognized that this deck could have serious troubles against burn, and he suggested to have Circle of Protection red in the sideboard, at least 2 of them. So I believe this is definitely going to happen. Thank you very much for this suggestion. But I believe it would be also very interesting to have something main deck. So I'm considering replacing those divine offerings, or at least one of them, for 1 ivory tower. So Elena makes the call. She decides to cast recall, and she discards 1 card, which was she has forgotten to discard, but she has picked up a lightning bolt. And so she has that lightning bolt that could be necessary for her to kill me. This is already broadcasting which one could be her plan. Now I'm doing the meanest thing possible, which is to tap my own Winter Orb at the end of her turn so that I can untap all my lands. And I'm again activating the land tax to keep this draw engine going of virtual card advantage. And now I've actually card advantage because those 3 cards didn't exist in my hand. However, if Elena's plan comes to fruition, it won't matter what I'm doing, because she will be able to kill me in time with lightning bolts and direct damage. My hopes are, with my current hand, that I can find those divine offerings so that at least I can disenchant, I don't know, my own Chaos Orb. But once again, I'm just showing here that the Mox Sapphire of Elena is tapped. This is the best moment, and she's completely tapped. This is the best possible moment to just destroy her blue source, because this would prevent her from ever casting Psionic Blasts, but I don't know why I didn't realize about this. So she has... Okay, so we cast again Winds of Change. All my lands are going back, and I'm going to try to find those sources of life gain. 6 cards, 6 fresh cards for me, and 5 new ones for Elena. She obviously is a little bit pissed off because she just cast a recall in order to pick up a lightning bolt, and she just lost it to the shuffling. But it's not so bad, because if you really think about it, she replaced a graveyard card and recall for a lightning bolt, and now it's in the deck, so she has higher chances to draw recall again. I mean, sorry, lightning bolts again. And we can see that she found one copy of it. That Mox Ruby is not going to change too much with a battlefield full of mountains. On my side, we see 3 Preacher, which right now are not very impactful, but they will be able to continue pushing for damage. Another copy of Blood Moon, which is really good. I attempt to play a second Preacher to increase the clock, but then very quickly I realize this makes me be completely tapped out, and I would rather prefer to cast Blood Moon instead. So after a really brief conversation, I think Elena lets me go back because we are testing the deck nevertheless. This is no serious tournament. And she lets me go back because I believe in this case, having a 3 damage per turn clock for 5 lives that Elena has is going to just ensure that I have 2 turns to kill her. An extra Preacher is not going to change this at all. So a second Blood Moon is much more impactful here, because if she was able, for some reason, to find Black Lotus, get white mana out of it and cast Disenchant on my Blood Moon or Winter Orb, this would ensure that she can come back into the game. What she does, however, is to use that that Mox Sapphire to cast an Ancestral Recall. And yet again, this is another reason for me to realize this was a very big mistake from my side. I should have used my Chaos Orb to destroy it. Frankly, I don't know why I am keeping that Chaos Orb active without being used. But yeah, if I had reacted in time, she wouldn't have been able to cast the Ancestral Recall. And I would have been able to preemptively disable the possibility of her casting Psionic Blast. However, once that you are in the game, sometimes it's not possible to keep all angles open. I have found, however, also 1 copy of Divine Offering, and I believe this is my plan. My current plan is to destroy my own Chaos Orb to gain 2 life in the last very moment if necessary. She plays a Volcanic Island, and let's see what happens. This Volcanic Island can cast, alongside these other 2 sources, at least 2 Lightning Bolts, but I believe that she only has 1 in her hand. She has that Disenchant that we were talking about. She can't deal with the Blood Moons because there is no white source of mana. She is definitely inside the, let's say, mana denial prison that Boros Taxes is offering. And on the other hand, she couldn't be able to cast any Serendib Ifrits, even though they would have been devastating for me because of the King Suleimans. So we can see that the deck is working, the strategy, let's say, the reasons behind this deck are working. We just need to find the perfect balance of how to deal with long games and burn, because I believe Boros Taxes has been dominating this game since the very beginning, but Elena is playing very good. She's trying to find an angle, a weakness in Boros Taxes. She's realizing she can still win the game if she finds more additional Lightning Bolts or Psionic Blasts. And I could definitely disenchant, or let's say Divine Offering my own Winter Orb. And instead of that, I don't know why I'm so focused on doing it with the Chaos Orb instead. Again, we see the blue Mox of Elena tapped. It would be a great opportunity for me to try to destroy it with the Chaos Orb, but I forget to do it. Now she's at 2 life, just 1 turn away from Boros Taxes to take the win. At the end of her turn, she's going to cast Lightning Bolt on me, which is going to put me down to 3 lives. And this is not good news for us, guys, because Boros Taxes is just 1 Lightning Bolt away from losing the game. She says it's my turn, so she untaps, and let's see what she's going to draw. That was the Lightning Bolt that she drew out of my Winds of Change. Does she have any more direct damage in her hand? Because if so, that would be game. If she doesn't kill me this turn, she dies. This is the last turn where we can actually see what's going on. Who is going to win, Boros Taxes or Jeskai Tempo? Will Elena be able to, despite the fact of being in a huge prison, will she be able to take over the game? There is a second lightning bolt, she found it. This would definitely kill me. But I had an ace under my sleeve. I was lucky enough to draw the Divine Offering. So what is going to happen in response is that I will tap and I will destroy my Chaos Orb. The stupid Chaos Orb that should have been sacrificed 1,000 ages ago just to destroy her Mox Sapphire. But now in this case, is going to be useful in a sense that I will trade my Chaos Orb for 2 lives. This gets me back to 5, minus 3 damage is 2. We are even on 2 lives. Is Boros Taxes going to win this game? Oh my god, can you see it? She has a Psionic Blast in her hand. That was her top deck. Tapping for 3, Psionic Blast, and that's the end of the game because I take 4 damage, she takes 2, and to be honest, I would do the same. It's rather better to get a tie than lose the game. So Boros Taxes was this close to finish the game and win. Yeah, basically that's the end of the game. So what do you think? Do you think that Boros Taxes is strong enough? Have you ever seen a deck competing against one of the top decks in the format, which could be Jeskai Tempo, for example, and keep it so hard for this deck to function? The King Suleimans were awesome in this matchup. The Serendip Ifrits couldn't even touch the battlefield. The Exorcist didn't do too much, but the Preachers also in the late game would have prevented any Serendip Ifrit from touching the battlefield as well, because then I would steal it and use it against her. So overall, I'm very satisfied. There is yet another game that we have recorded, also very thrilling, very interesting. I don't know, what do you say, guys? Do you like what you saw regarding the deck list of Boros Taxes? Let me know. Until then, see you in the next one.